In a small village in North India, an old stone well sits abandoned, known to the locals as the Well of Death. The legend is simple. Anyone who approaches the well after dark never returns quite the same. For Arav, a 22-year-old local, these warnings were nothing more than campfire stories. He viewed his skepticism as a mark of intelligence, a way to separate himself from the superstitions of the older generation. To prove his point, he accepted a dare from his friends. He would go alone, at exactly midnight, and stay for 10 minutes. Arav's experience followed a specific sequence often seen in these accounts: transgression, isolation, psychological break, and finally, assimilation. By documenting his final hours, we can see how this process is used to systematically dismantle a victim's reality. In this framework, Arav's skepticism didn't protect him. Instead, the act of knowingly ignoring the village warnings served as the transgression, the specific trigger required to start the cycle. At midnight, Arav walked the isolated path toward the well. The wind was high, and the only sound was the swaying of trees, marking the beginning of the isolation phase. The moment he reached the stone edge, his flashlight began to flicker. He assumed it was a simple battery failure, a common occurrence in the damp night air. But then, his smartphone provided a more impossible failure. The battery, which had been at 70% just moments before, dropped to 0% in seconds. By removing both light and communication, the situation enforces a state of total physical vulnerability. Arav was now cut off from the modern world, left alone in the dark. The psychological break began with the sound of pained crying and whispers rising from the shaft. When Arav looked down, he saw a single white hand slowly reaching over the wet stone ledge. The crying dissolved into a child's laughter, which grew in volume until the entire area fell into a deafening, unnatural silence. Then came the tactile shift. In the absolute darkness, Arav felt an ice-cold hand grip his shoulder. When he spun around, the space behind him was empty. Panicked, he tried to run back toward the village. This is where he encountered spatial disorientation. No matter how fast he ran, the path bent back on itself. He was trapped in a closed circle leading back to the well. This loop breaks the victim's reliance on physical logic. Without trusting your movement, your sense of agency disappears. During a sudden lightning flash, Arav saw that he wasn't alone. Dozens of figures in white stood in a circle around him, their faces featuring nothing but deep, empty black pits where eyes should be. As the light faded, an old woman's voice whispered a warning. If he looked behind him one more time, he would never see the morning. The encounter concludes by exploiting a basic human reflex. The impulse to look back is nearly impossible to suppress. When Arav finally turned to face the threat, he locked eyes with the entity, completing the cycle and sealing his fate. Villagers found Arav the next morning, unconscious and miles from the well. While he had survived the night, his mind was gone. He spent the rest of his days talking to an invisible figure he claimed was standing directly behind him. Months later, the assimilation phase reached its conclusion. Arav vanished from his own home, despite the windows and doors being locked from the inside. The only thing left in the room was a sentence written on the wall in blood. Now he is also in the well. The legend has now evolved. During rainstorms, villagers claim they can hear a young man's voice coming from the depths of the shaft, begging passers-by to help him out. The Well of Death functions as a self-sustaining cycle. It targets those who doubt its existence, only to use their voices to lure the next generation toward the edge.